Almost every song you have ever loved reached you inside a container designed by one Dutch company. The cassette you wound back with a pencil in the passenger seat. The compact disc you slid into a tray and watched catch the light. Both of those objects were drawn up in the same organization, in a small city in the south of the Netherlands. For 50 years, if you owned recorded music, you were holding Philips engineering in your hand. Today you can pick up Philips headphones or a Philips soundbar, and the company printed on that box did not build it, did not design it, and in most cases never saw it. The red shield is authentic, the product underneath it belongs to strangers. And in January of 2026, that arrangement finally reached the one place everyone assumed was safe. Philips sold off the business that makes its emergency defibrillators, the heart start machines mounted on walls in airports and schools in more than 130 countries. The buyer, an investment platform, renamed itself HeartStream and kept selling those defibrillators under a Philips brand license. Same shield, different company behind it. The exact thing that happened to the stereo happened to the machine that restarts a human heart. Which tells you that the usual explanation is wrong. This was never a story about a company that lost its nerve in the audio market. Philips did not drift away from sound. 60 years ago, it discovered something about its own business that almost no one else understood at the time. And once you see that discovery, every decision since lines up like dominoes already falling. The discovery happened in 1966. 3 years earlier, at the radio exhibition in Berlin, Philips had shown the world a small plastic shell holding 2 tiny reels of quarter-inch tape. Lou Ottens and his team in the Belgian town of Hasselt had built it because reel-to-reel tape was miserable, threading a fragile ribbon by hand across spindles until it snapped. Ottens is said to have carried a block of wood in his pocket, cut to the exact size he wanted the thing to be. What came out of that workshop was the compact cassette, and the first machine to play it, the EL-3300. A year later, it landed in America under the Norelco name as a recorder you could hold in one hand. Then came the decision that mattered more than the invention. Rival manufacturers were racing to launch their own tape cartridges. Philips could have locked the format down and charged whatever it wanted. Instead, it made the compact cassette essentially free to build. Anyone could make the tapes, anyone could make the players. This is usually told as generosity. It was something far more interesting. Philips had run the arithmetic and realized that a factory can only make so many machines, but a standard can be adopted by everyone on Earth at once. Give away the shape and you become the reference every other company has to match. Philips still sold enormous volumes of blank tape. It still controlled the definition of what a cassette was. And most importantly, it now had a permanent seat in every conversation about the future of recorded sound because it owned the language everyone was speaking. The result was not a product, it was an ecosystem. Billions of cassettes, the mixtape handed to someone you were too shy to talk to. The bootleg passed between strangers, the Walkman on a jogger's belt, whole music scenes spread on tape through places no record label had ever bothered to visit. And the company in Eindhoven learned a lesson it would never unlearn. The most profitable object Philips ever produced was not a machine at all. It was a set of rules. That should not have been a surprise because Philips had been quietly running a rule factory since 1914. The famous Nat Lab in Eindhoven is usually described as a temple of pure curiosity, physicists chasing ideas for years at a time. It was that. It was also one of the most productive patent operations in Europe. What came out of it was not only radios and valves and televisions, it was documentation. Claims, ownership of ideas. Philips still runs a department dedicated to intellectual property and standards, and it still sits at the table where global technical standards get written. That is not a leftover from the glory days. That is the main engine, and it always was. Once you accept that, the compact disc stops looking like a partnership and starts looking like a toll booth. By the late 70s, Sony was building an optical audio disc, and so was Philips, and both companies knew what a format war costs. So in 1979, they sat down and built one standard together. Philips contributed the physical disc and a clever encoding method that let a disc survive fingerprints and scratches and still play. Sony contributed a powerful way of catching and repairing errors as the laser read. Engineers flew between Eindhoven and Tokyo, hammering 2 designs into one. The legend says a Sony executive trained as a classical musician insisted the disc hold Beethoven's Ninth without a break, which pushed the running time to 74 minutes and the disc to 12 centimeters. In April 1981, they presented it in Salzburg with Herbert von Karajan standing beside them. On the 17th of August 1982, in Langenhagen near Hanover, the first commercial CD came off a Philips line. Notice what changed from the cassette. This time Philips did not give the format away. It shared ownership of the core patents with Sony, and every disc pressed anywhere on the planet, every player built in any factory in any country sent a small payment back toward Eindhoven. Philips had taken the lesson of 1966 and installed a meter on it. For roughly 20 years, the company collected rent on the way humanity listened to music. This is also why the famous failures look different than they should. Video 2000, launched in 1979 with Grundig, was arguably better engineered than VHS or Betamax. Its cassettes flipped over like an audio tape. It died in 1988 anyway. The digital compact cassette arrived in 1992 with Matsushita, could still play your old analog tapes, and was quietly killed in 1996 while Sony's mini disc stumbled alongside it. The usual reading is that Philips could out-engineer anyone and never outsell them, but look at what those two products actually had in common. In both cases, Philips owned a standard that the rest of the industry refused to adopt. A rulebook nobody follows is worth nothing, no matter how good the rules are. The company was not learning that it was bad at selling. It was learning that its real asset only pays when other people build the machines. If stories like this hold your attention, the hidden machinery underneath companies you grew up trusting, subscribe because the pattern gets stranger from here. In 1998, Philips sold Polygram, one of the largest record companies in the world, into what became Universal Music. The firm that invented the cassette let go of the music that filled it. From the outside that reads as surrender. From the inside it reads as a portfolio decision. Hit records are a lottery. Format royalties are an annuity. Philips chose the annuity. Then came the slow conversion. Semiconductors were spun out in 2006 and became NXP, because fabrication plants swallow capital. Under Franz van Houten from 2011, the company declared itself a health technology business. Television manufacturing went to a joint venture with Taiwan's TPV that same year. The audio and video division was packaged for sale. A deal with Funai collapsed into lawsuits and an arbitration award of roughly $135 million. And the orphan business was renamed Wuchs Innovations before Gibson, the American guitar maker, bought it in 2014 for about the same figure plus a fee to keep using the Philips name. Gibson went bankrupt in 2018 and the audio license landed back with TPV. Lighting, the original business Gerard and Anton nearly died building in 1891, was spun off and renamed Signify. Domestic appliances went to an investment firm in 2021 for billions, kept the Philips name under a 15-year license, and eventually rebranded itself for Sony. Here's the mechanism nobody names out loud. The CD patents eventually expired. Patents always do. But a trademark does not expire as long as you keep renewing it and keep it valuable. So Philips upgraded. It stopped being a landlord of technical standards and became a landlord of trust itself. The name is the last asset and it is the only one that never wears out. Watch how durable that is. Funai went bankrupt in late 2024. In 2025, the Chinese manufacturer Skyworth picked up its North American television operation. Philips branded sets included, while the old Magnavox label was licensed off to yet another company. 3 corporate deaths and the logo walked through all of them without a scratch, because it was never attached to any of the factories in the first place. And healthcare was never an exception to this. It was the final proof of it. In 2021, Philips recalled more than 15 million sleep and breathing machines over degrading sound insulation foam, and by 2024 it had signed a consent decree with American regulators that halted sales of new sleep devices in the United States entirely. That is the true cost of physical objects. Foam degrades. Patients get hurt. Courts get involved. A license carries none of that. So on the 14th of January 2026, the emergency care business, with an installed base of over 3 million defibrillators, walked out the door as Heartstream, still wearing the Philips name by contract. So the ending is not that a great company gave up on sound, it is that Philips solved a problem in 1966 that the rest of the industry took 50 years to notice, and the solution slowly ate everything solid the company owned. Permission turned out to be more profitable than production, and permission has no factory, no warranty, no recall, and no feel in the hand. Which is why an old Philips cassette recorder still matters. The buttons are heavy, the mechanism clicks. It was built by people who had to answer for it. That object exists because a company once had to make something real to earn anything at all. Then it found a better way, and the better way did not need the object. Somewhere in a drawer, the last honest version of Philips is still sitting there, waiting for someone to press play.